Episode 8, The Other Health Stuff, Part 2. For the quick tip in this episode, we're going to talk about why you might want to consider bringing a weighted vest with you on your next workout. For the main topic, it's the other health stuff, part 2, like I said. But in part 1, in episode 7, we went over the sauna, and that took up the whole episode, basically. So we want to go over cryotherapy. We want to go over the hyperbaric oxygen chamber, and we also want to go over red light therapy. The bulk of this main topic is going to be talking about cryotherapy or cold plunge or cold plunging, right? And then for our first random topic, I'm just going to lay this out there. I suck at golf, but I keep doing it for a reason, right? Right? And for the second random topic, I want to talk about this, and this one's another pretty random one. I was just on YouTube and I saw this this video about professional cuddlers. Yeah. What's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well out there. Listen, I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese and Live Studio, and you're listening to the Scowl Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. Let's get into the episode. All right, so what is this silly thing that I have on me right now? It is a weighted vest. Weighted vest, it kind of looks like a bulletproof vest almost. But listen, grab your weighted vest. Use it on your next workout. There are quite a few benefits to using a weighted vest during exercising or during just, walking. And if you're a glutton for punishment during running. But let me backtrack a little bit here, right? So let's start first. What it is, it's just basically a vest that kind of hangs over your shoulders, right? And you put plates or sand little things in it. And this one in particular has a sand, like little sand packs, and you put them in there. And it can go up to 40 pounds of additional weight. Right now, there's not 40 pounds in it because all I'm doing is sitting here podcasting. So we're not doing that here right now. And I'm already sweating just sitting here with this. I think I have maybe half of it in there, 20 pounds. Anyway, listen, you want to do weighted. Well, first you want to make sure that you get a weighted vest that fits, right? Like you don't want something that's hanging over your shoulders, like if you see on the camera, like it's laying on the side like that. You want it to be kind of proper and kind of fit to you a little bit. And it's very similar. So doing exercises or doing things with the weighted vest is also very similar to rucking. But rucking is more so like you have like a backpack on. It's kind of like a backpack more than a weighted vest situation. But they're both very, very beneficial for you. So what are all these benefits that I talk of for this tip here, right? So first things first, it can supercharge all of your body weight exercises, right? Well, most of your body weight exercises. I just thought of a few that it doesn't do anything for. But let's just say you're doing push-ups and you do 20 push-ups every day or something like that. Put on a weighted vest and try doing those push-ups. It'll change it for you, right? This is also a way for you to progress a lot of different body weight exercises by adding some weight to you that sticks close to you, right? Especially as let's just say you're on a weight loss program and you're losing weight and most of it is doing body weight exercise. So adding the additional weight can actually help you progress even further. And in fact, there was this one study or a couple studies done, and there was this, I don't remember the man's name, but what he did was he wore a weighted vest all day, every day, everywhere he went. And as he was losing weight, he added the weight that he lost onto like the weighted vest basically. So let's just say like he was 150 pounds, he lost 5 pounds, he would add 5 pounds to the weighted vest so that he was still at 150 pounds. And come to find out, he was losing a good deal of fat and didn't really lose. I think he gained muscle on top of that. So using this could be very, very beneficial, right? So the first things first, it will supercharge your body weight exercises. And as an offshoot of that, obviously it helps you build strength and endurance in your muscles, right? So, that kind of goes without, explaining, but I explained it. So, and what it also does is it improves balance and it improves core strength, right? Because one thing that you really have to do when you have the weighted vest on is like you can no longer slouch, right? You can't just sit there and sink into it. You actually have to have an upright position. You have to have proper posture. And with that weight kind of forcing you into that position, and also you're resisting against that idea of trying to like slouch and move into it, strengthens upper back, core, improves your balance, especially if you're walking with the weighted vest on, or if you're running, even better. Not better, but even more pronounced of a change, I guess. It also improves body awareness in a way. You're way more intentional about the steps you take. And this is, specifically with walking, you're way more intentional with the steps that you have to take when you have added weight to you. So you're sure that you're not going to collapse an ankle or collapse a knee or something like that. You want to make sure everything is lined up, and you're activating certain muscles. So it's funny. I a long time ago, I used to tell my clients to walk with your butt. Right? Because most people kind of just like, they do this weird lean forward when they're walking, and then it puts all the impact on their knees. And they kind of just like just let their leg kind of carry through when they're walking. So it's almost like you're power walking, but you're not power walking, what I suggest, right? So it's like you just walk with your butt, like feel your glutes activate when you're walking. And that kind of leads to less, pain and less injuries and things like that. So walking with a weighted vest on causes you basically to walk with your butt. So you're more intentional about each step that you take. You're walking with your whole posterior chain, which is something that we typically do not do. Okay. Another benefit, and I guess maybe this is the last one I'll go. Well, no, it won't be the last one. But another benefit is that it increases bone density, right? So I was thinking about this for a little bit. All right, so there's this thing like in like kickboxing, and it seems like a little bit off the beaten path, but just hang with me for a second, right? There's this thing in kickboxing and other combat sports where you would almost intentionally break a bone to make it harder, to make it fused, and apparently it's a harder bone and it won't break as easily and all that fun stuff. But then I saw a whole bunch of different studies that basically kind of made that look like a myth, where you really can't just break a bone and it fuses harder together. Maybe at the site of impact, but there's some malleability that you need with your bones still, right? So you don't necessarily need to be fused, because on the ends of that fusion, more bone breaks happen. So so that's not necessarily a great method. But what I saw in a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of different studies, is that if you do things that increase your bone density overall, that's what makes a stronger bone. And while it still maintains some of its give, some of its bend here, some of its movement, right? And the number one thing that you could do to increase bone density in general is resistance training. This walking with a vest on increases bone density because it's almost like resistance walking. It's resistance training in a different form. So I would suggest doing it for that, especially if you have, if you're getting older, and talks of osteoporosis are coming through, like the weighted vest walking is pretty much clutch for you in that situation. Okay. Of course, along with other nutritional items and all that fun stuff. But slap the weighted vest on. You'll be good. So there's a few, I guess there's also a few points to where you're like, you have to really lock in on making sure that this is a good fit. It has, like, you have a good fit. Like, it's snug to you. It's not loose and hanging all over the place. It's not too far off your shoulders. The fit for this is very important, because the number one thing I hear about people doing anything with the weighted vest is that they get like neck pains, and it just hurts their back and hurts all types of different things. Some cases, it's absolutely warranted and justified, and they just don't have a good fit. Other cases, it's just they need to strengthen up some of the muscles in the back because they pretty much tend to slouch all day. But ultimately, just make sure when you get a weighted vest, you have a good fit. Now, here's a little bonus quick tip. So there's a quick tip to the quick tip again. What I will do is, and it's funny, so I like shoulders apparently, and I like working shoulders apparently. But I will put on a weighted vest with a decent amount of weight on. So I'll probably stack this thing up until it's 40 pounds. And then what I'll go and do is a set of lateral raises. Why am I doing that? Because I'm not trying to work my traps at all. In fact, what I'm trying to do is take my traps out of the actual lateral raise and significantly isolate the middle delt region. Okay? What I'll do is I'll set the vest on, and that weight that's carrying down, it's not really just pushing my traps down or anything like that, or pushing my shoulders down, depressing my shoulders, but it acts as a reminder to depress my shoulders and to not bring my traps into the lateral raise movement. Remember, lateral raise, you're pushing away from your body. The weighted vest, I mean, I used to do this with bands, wrap bands around and basically have the bands act as a kind of like an anchor almost pulling me down. Well, now I just do that with the weighted vest. Pop the weighted vest on, do some lateral raises, and I will feel it in my mid delt even more. And that's actually how I got to train just doing lateral raises the proper way. Okay? But that's all I got for you on this quick tip. Put on your weighted vest, go out for a nice little walk. Go out for a jog. Again, if you're a glutton for punishment, don't overload the weight if you're going out for a jog. Do some push-ups, do some pull-ups, do some things on a TRX or the suspension trainer, right? And you will definitely see and feel the difference. All right, let's move on. All right, so we are in the main topic for this episode, the other health stuff part 2. This is where we talk about my least favorite of these other health items, which is the cold plunge. It's my least favorite because I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate the cold. I hate the cold. So my sauna is my favorite. Cold plunge is my least favorite. But the benefits of cold plunging, they're great. They're great, right? I've been cold plunging on and off for years now, just as many years, I guess, as I've been doing the sauna. And it's funny because with cold plunging, so like with sauna, I know I'm going to go and I'm going to feel pretty good and relaxed and all that fun stuff, even though the heat is turned up and I'm kind of like, and it puts a little pressure on me. I still get nervous before I do every cold plunge because it's just that difficult for me to do. Like I have yet to get used to it. There's never been a point in time where I was actually used to cold plunging. So what do you do exactly when you go to cold plunge, right? So I mean, there's a number of different things that you can do. That falls under the like cryotherapy umbrella or whatever. Like you could do cold air cryotherapy in a chamber or whatever, or isolated single spot cryotherapy. That's something different. In this case, I'm talking about submersion cryotherapy, which is cold plunging. You jump in some water, up to your like neck. I never tried the one where you like submerge yourself real quick and then come back up to your neck. That's crazy. Couldn't do it. But you can jump in some water that's around maybe like 50 degrees or lower. Not to like, completely frozen block, obviously, right? But like I've heard people doing a cold plunge in something as low as 38 degrees, which I don't think I can. Well, yeah, that's cold. That's cold. So, but either way, you jump into it, and based on the actual temperature of the water, that's how long you're gonna, that's how you gauge how long you stay in it, right? So, typically, what I end up doing is I'll jump in some 50 degree, probably a little bit less, maybe around 40 degrees, which is still a really cold water, and I stay in it. Actually, you know what? It might even be colder than that. So maybe whatever. I still don't like it. But you jump in the water, have ice in the water and all that fun stuff, and I stay in it for 1 to 3 minutes. It took a long time to build up to 1 minute. Let me put it that way, because the first 30 seconds, you just get that cold shock, and I start hyperventilating and so on and so forth. And then a few times after that, what I ended up doing was stepping in it as it was somewhat warm water, and then had the chiller kind of turn on, and then so progressively it got colder. But there was still a point where it was too much to take. But that's the idea of what you would do. So you see people, jumping out in the cold lakes and stuff like that. That's a little risky. That's a little risky because that initial shock to your system that you get from that cold water could cause all types of issues. So, but there's people who do in tubs. Athletes do it all the time after a hard workout or whatever. So that's the general idea of what you're doing here. You're basically just getting in a tub of water, getting in a body of water, and you have ice in it or not, but it's generally cold water. So here are the benefits to cold plunging, right? I'm gonna lay them out, but I'm gonna go over each one individually, right? So the first pretty decent benefit is it promotes fat loss. The next one, it improves circulation. Another benefit, it improves. So there are a number of different mental benefits, and in fact, this is why I do the cold plunge. I don't really do the cold plunge for any of the actual physical benefits, even though I know they're present. I do the cold plunge for the mental benefits, and there are quite a bit studies-backed, science-backed benefits to cold plunging. And then there's some anecdotal stuff as well, where through my experiences, the cold plunge has definitely helped out in terms of boosting my mentality or boosting my mindset. Is almost kind of hard to explain, but it definitely made me think differently. And another benefit is it boosts immune function. So it boosts your immune system. And that one's an interesting one too. So I'll go over all of them, starting with fat loss. So fat loss, the idea of fat loss or doing the cold plunge for fat loss breaks down into two separate ideas. So basically it comes down to you shivering. So or not shivering, right? So there's shivering thermogenesis, which basically means you're shivering, you're causing small minor contractions in the muscles repeatedly, and so that causes you to kind of burn some stuff here, right? And then there's non-shivering thermogenesis. This is actually the more effective one, okay? So I'll start with non-shivering, and then obviously I'll move to shivering at that point, and you'll get the point, right? So non-shivering thermogenesis is a process in which your body basically burns energy by converting your white fat into brown fat, and brown fat is more metabolically active, okay? So that's what's going on with your body, like your physically, your physiology is changing. Basically, your body is gathering this energy. So what happens is you get in this water, it's cold, and you're starting to drop your core body temperature, right? So remember, when we're talking about the sauna raises your core body temperature and your body reacts in a number of different ways. In the cold plunge, you're lowering your core body temperature and your body is reacting in a different set of ways. One of those ways is it's basically trying to draw everything to the core of your body so that you can still maintain some warmth, so you don't go below that point where it's just like, uh-oh, we're in trouble, right? The way your body does that is by converting some of the white fat that's usually in your, subcutaneous fat in your skin to the more metabolically active and ready to burn brown fat. So that process in and of itself causes you to burn some energy, right? You need to use that process, takes energy to do, and then you're basically trying to heat up the core of your body with this brown fat. So, and keep in mind, with the non-shivering thermogenesis, is just that, non-shivering. So there's no movement that's actually required. You sit there. With repeated bouts of the cold plunge, your body becomes more, again, it's another adaptation. It converts more and more of the white fat into the brown fat, which is easy to break down into free energy, right? So it's also very muscle sparing. Now, later on in this episode, in this topic, I'll talk about why you wouldn't necessarily add it, though, to a hypertrophy program or a muscle gaining program. And there's very specific points here, right? Because there's other things that come along with that. But then let's go to shivering thermogenesis, right? Remember, so it's shivering, you're just like, right? But all that is small, minor muscle contractions, and that happens so that you can produce heat. So you're producing heat, not necessarily at your core, but all over your body with these small little muscle contractions. Now think about it, right? You'll shiver when you're cold, when you're exposed to cold, but when else do you shiver? You shiver when you're sick. So think about it. When you're fighting off an infection, what your body does is it raises its core temperature. So basically, to raise your core temperature, your body will shiver, right? In this instance, you will shiver because, the whole idea of you have the chills and all that fun stuff, and it's just like, but really it's your body shivering to raise your body temperature to burn out that bacteria, that virus, or whatever it needs to fight, right? So it's the same process, just for different reasons. Shivering will then raise your body temperature to fight infection, or shivering will raise your body temperature because you're cold, right? But those are the two main things. But that requires energy. So the next thing a cold plunge could do for you, for your body, it could boost your immune system. Okay, so when you're exposed to cold like that so rapidly and for a consistent period of time, I guess, right? Your body produces additional infection-fighting white blood cells, right? But not only does it produce those, it also produces additional lymph fluid. Now that's important there, right? Because what is your lymph fluid, right? That's kind of outside of your bloodstream and feeds back into your bloodstream. So it's like another cleaner of sorts, right? So the lymph fluid transports the additional, all of them, really, all the white blood cells that your body is producing. So again, cold plunging will jumpstart your white blood cell production. Your lymph fluid will then also increase, and then it will transport all those additional white blood cells to where they need to go. Because your lymph fluid basically transports white blood cells, other nutrients and other minerals to where they need to go, back into your organs. But it ends up going back into your bloodstream and getting back to your organs in a positive manner, right? while the lymph fluid transports all the good stuff, it also transports all of the bad stuff. So it takes away, it cleans through and it carries in it viruses, bacteria, abnormal cells, mutated cells or what have you. So the lymph fluid carries all that stuff away. So in essence, cold plunging jumpstarts the process of boosting your immune system on one hand, but it also jumpstarts a detox process. And again, I know that's it's like, oh, here we go. There's another person talking about detoxing of some sort, but this is actually what the doctors and other people were, professionals and everything. This is what they were actually talking about. This has already been proven. So your lymph fluid carries all of those bad cells, all those broken down, mutated cells, all the viruses, all the bacteria, all the bad stuff, transports that away, out, and all that fun stuff as well, right? And where's the end point here in this whole process where again, I want to start from the very beginning here, right? So it's like you expose yourself to cold, and that way, cold plunging, your body produces more white blood cells, your body produces more lymph fluid, so that lymph fluid carries more of those white blood cells around to your body where they need to be, but that lymph fluid also carries away all of the bacteria, viruses, broken down mutated cells, abnormal cells, what have you, and it pushes all of that stuff back into your bloodstream. All the bacteria and viruses and stuff like that go to your liver, into your kidneys, and then you pretty much, get rid of it from there, as we do every day, right? But then all of the white blood cells and all that fun stuff go to where they're needed for repair, for fighting off any additional infection. So basically, cold plunging jumpstarts that process. It makes that process more efficient. It boosts your immune system in that way. So I saw this one study where it was a bunch of swimmers, basically. And the more and more I hear about just how good swimming really is for you, I'm not going to say the more I like it, because I don't like swimming either. So I just don't like water, apparently. But the more, there's one study I read was basically conducted with a bunch of swimmers, and it was just that, I guess the conclusion was that these swimmers were less likely to get upper respiratory infections simply because they were swimming in cold waters. So there is a definite benefit to cold plunging as it pertains to your immune system, especially during, we're coming up on fall, even though it's a pretty hot day today again. But we're coming up on fall, we're coming up on winter, and all I hear is everybody sneezing, I chewed, and COVID is still going around in places. I mean, I guess everywhere. So something like cold plunging could definitely be a big benefit to you, just to make sure that you're not, knocked out of commission from some virus. Now, another reason you might want to consider doing a cold plunge, maybe 5 times, give it 5 times, right? No, for repeated bouts, is it improves your overall blood circulation. Now, what happens when you jump in that cold water? When you get in that cold water, your blood your blood vessels constrict, right? And they tighten up. And they squeeze blood to your core, to your center, the center of your body, to all the vital organs at the center of your body, right? And now, by doing that, it's forcing your vessels and your whole circulation to operate more efficiently, right? Because it's not going to be able to send a boatload, a massive amount of blood everywhere that it needs to be. We have to take care of your center, basically, is what your body is telling you, right? So when you do that, you get in the cold water, your blood vessels constrict, you start to operate a little bit more efficiently when it comes to your circulation. Then you get out and your blood vessels, contract, I guess, expand again. They dilate. That's the proper medical term. So they dilate, and then now it starts to operate as normal. But you still have that sense of operating more efficiently. But what that does is it forces your blood vessels to constrict, then dilate, constrict, then dilate. What does that remind you of? It reminds you of a muscle. Contract and expand, contract and expand. I'm doing bicep curls again. But it's the same thing. It's basically like deadlifting for your blood vessels. So, and that only makes everything stronger. It only makes everything more efficient. So it's a sneaky little benefit that I don't think is talked about enough. It improves your blood circulation. Now, the main reason why I do cold plunging, even though I listed off some really great benefits to doing it, I listed off some really great benefits for your health and for your body in a physical sense. The number one reason why I do cold plunging is for mental health. And so let me paint the picture a little bit here, right? I'll do sauna for physical benefits, mostly physical benefits. And I like it. It's relaxing. So maybe there's some mental benefits there too. But I do it for mostly the physical benefits, primarily for that lean muscle tissue gain. Again, say you're a meathead without saying you're a meathead. And I'll do the cold plunge for the mental benefits because, again, the physical benefits are great, but I find that I get the most out of it from a mental perspective, right? And I'll start to explain it basically, what does your body do physiologically, or biologically or hormonally, right? In a physical sense, what does your body do as it pertains to your mental health? So jumping in some pretty cold water causes you to, or could cause your body to release adrenaline, noradrenaline, dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins. So that's a very interesting combination. Let's just say that. But what that basically says is it'll make you more alert. It'll make you more focused, while also reducing your stress. So it's a very interesting combination of hormones there that get released when you jump in some cold behind water. But that is typically what happens when you do, right? And that's why you hear of a lot of people kind of experiencing this type of high when they come out of it and all that fun stuff, because their body is being flooded with different, especially the endorphins that makes you feel kind of like at peace, right? And so I first started doing I've done cold plunging for years, as I said, and when I first started doing it, it was purely for the physical benefits. I was an athlete. I was like, my joints hurt, and I'm just gonna pop in this cold tub. And it was never really that cold though, but it maybe it helped and maybe it didn't. I don't know, but maybe over the last few years, I've really started to dig into and do the cold plunging for the mental benefits. And I remember at the time I was going through some pretty rough stuff. I was essentially cracking under the pressure that is, my life, right? It wasn't easy, I guess, right? Being a Christian father, Christian husband, entrepreneur, also trying to be a great employee for someone else, and then trying to achieve or accomplish the dreams and accomplish the visions that I had. It was just a lot of pressure, and a lot of things happened that kind of just that tagged me up a little bit. Let's put it that way, right? So I started the cold plunge and for for the mental part of it. And I didn't really know much about it in terms of its mental benefits. I just randomly heard, and I forgot what podcast it was, but this one gentleman used it as therapy. And so I gave it a shot because I was in a pretty low place, right? I was in a low place, and I needed to be mentally and emotionally stronger. Not even just for myself, but for my wife and for my boys, for my clients, for everybody that I came in contact with. I needed to be stronger. So what I when I first started doing that for that reason, I read all the literature on it in the background, and I heard, again, I forgot who he was, but he was saying he used it as a form of therapy. And then the literature I read said basically you can meditate. And I think that's also kind of part of the another guy, the Wim Hof method, where you kind of meditate in this freezing cold water, and grab the mental benefits from there. So that's kind of along the lines of what I was doing. That's what I tried. I tried to meditate, and it just wasn't working at first, right? It didn't happen for me. It was cold water, right? It's cold water. I hate the cold. And that's all I could think about. So I tried that a couple times, and it didn't work. And then I tried to actually pray while I was in there. And I was so distracted. I was so distracted that I couldn't even form I couldn't even form the sentences in my mind to even pray. Like, I couldn't even connect to God in that way. And I want you to hear me here, right? I was using it. I was attempting to use cold plunging as therapy. And I got in this cold water, and I attempted to meditate, and I couldn't do it. I attempted to pray, and I couldn't do it. Why? And again, hear me. I couldn't do it because all I could think about was how cold that water was. All I could think about was how much my body was trembling inside of this, being submersed in this cold water. All I could think about was something external to me that is causing me discomfort. I was thinking outside of me. I was thinking of things that were happening to me. That's all I could focus on. And that's when I had my epiphany. I was so focused on how cold the water was. I was so focused on how much my body was shaking because of it. I was so focused on my external circumstances that I couldn't even get to a point where I had any semblance of a logical, straight through, rational thought. That's all I could think about. My environment controlled me. The water, the cold water controlled me. But I kept at it. I kept trying it. I kept doing it. Still get nervous before doing it, but I still kept going for it. And eventually I got to a point where I was able to be at peace. I was able to pray. I was able to actually meditate while in this cold water. And over time, for an extended period of time. Still never passed in 3 minutes, right? And that was the thing that was tripping me out, because it was just like, look, I can't stay in here for 1 minute. Like, man up. But it was one of those things where once I got to a point that my once I got to a point where my external environment wasn't controlling me as much, that's when I really started to figure it out. I started to figure out that I could focus and I could regulate everything. It no longer became difficult to do so. Drop right in it. Like I breathed, I prayed, I had control over my thoughts. And that panic and that anxiety that I felt every single time before that, I was able to control it. I was able to control my emotions. I was able to regulate my emotions by switching my thinking. Sound familiar? So cold plunging became my way of dealing with life stress. My cold plunging became my way of dealing with life. And nobody really wants to deal with those things that make us feel uncomfortable. This was my practice. All right, and the better I got at cold plunging, truth be told, the better I got at handling other things that pop up in my life. Now, keep in mind, cold plunging isn't for everyone, right? I said before, earlier on, that you just jumping in the cold water, especially if you're going for a swim or something like that, and it's deep cold waters. That initial shock actually caused people to drown before. So the cold shock, people end up, kind of just like hyperventilating, and then they get a little bit of water and then they're drowning, which is, so that's not advisable, right? I wouldn't advise doing a cold plunge if you have any heart issues at all whatsoever. Okay. It's just, it's too much stress on your heart. If that's one of the things that you, an issue that you have, right? I also wouldn't advise it, and I alluded to this earlier, I would not advise doing any cold plunging immediately after any form of resistance training, right? Especially if your goal is to gain lean muscle tissue, right? Because what it does is basically it blunts all of the effects of the actual resistance training. So if you cold plunge right after, like a workout where you just like, oh man, you pumped and everything like that, you're basically limiting the gains, right? And we don't want to limit the gains, right? I mean, it slows down muscle protein synthesis. It slows down the actual gene expression of yeah, I'm getting a little too complicated here, but it slows down quite a few things. It even slows down satellite cell activation, production and activation, so it's not going to get to your muscles to recover as quickly. So it pretty much becomes a detriment to your muscle gain. It's a detriment to hypertrophy. So you would want to do that on a completely different day altogether, just so you can avoid missing out on some gains here. You don't want to leave the gains on the table, right? But that's the cold plunge. A lot of benefits, a lot of physiological benefits, a lot of mental benefits. So if you are healthy enough, I would say give it a shot. Give it a shot. Start off with you could even start off with a cold shower. That's it. Start off with a cold shower. And slowly, little by little, increase how cold it is and how much of that cold water that you're putting on you, and then you can go from there. That is a great. Actually, that's how I started all this time ago. I just started taking cold showers, and you could actually see a decent amount of benefits from just that. Now, it's not exactly the same as complete, not complete, but as submersion, right? Getting in that water, but it is a good lead-in to eventually getting to that point. Okay, so that's cold plunging, right? My least favorite of all these other health things, but the one that you get the probably most mental benefits out of. So the next one that I want to talk about is red light therapy. Well, wait, no, I lied. Actually, I want to talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, right? Now, I've done this quite a few times in the past, and it's different. It's cool, right? So what it is you basically get in this this chamber or tank of some sort. Like, you actually get in it, and the whole thing is kind of like airtight and is pressurized, right? So then the pressure's turned up to, like, I guess 2 or 3 times what our outdoor, like, normal pressure is, and then is pumped up and pumped in with 100% pure oxygen. Now, as an aside, did you know that the air that we breathe actively is not even mostly oxygen? We call it oxygen, but it's mostly nitrogen. I think it's like 70 something percent nitrogen, and only what 20%, 21%, something like that. It's like a very specific number. It has to be, though, because if it's like, let's just say if it's 19% oxygen, then like some sickness starts to happen or something like that, or some disease or some type of malformity or something happens. So it has to be at like a very specific number or above. But I think it's only like 21% oxygen. So it's like 70% nitrogen, 20%, 21% oxygen, and then the rest is just a whole bunch of other different gases. So we're not even really breathing that much oxygen in. Anyway, you get in this tank, it's pressurized 2 or 3 times normal pressure, and then 100% pure oxygen is pumped into there. Now, why would you do this in the first place, right? I mean, at times in the past, basically every time I used it for healing and recovery. That is it. It's one of the best tools to use, one of the best things to do for healing and recovery. And there's a lot of research on that pretty much proves as such. And well, I'm not just talking about, regular like muscle recovery, even though that's a big part of it, but I'm also talking about like wound healing, bone healing. Like, I heard this one story, and this is anecdotal now, but I heard this one story about this guy who broke his arm or something like that, and doctors were just like, yeah, you're going to be in this setup for at least 6 to 8 months. This dude came back 3 months later and got his cast off. But he had a whole setup. Like, he had the whole setup in his house. I actually heard that story multiple times, because I think, I heard something similar to that quite a few times. He just broke his arm. He fell off a ladder or something like that, which was, kind of crazy unto itself. But 3 months, like half the time that the doctor actually told him that, hey, look, we're going to have to check these things, and, you probably won't be good until, 6 to 8 months. It's just like, he basically cut that time in half, and he was healed, like, fully. So he had the whole setup in his house and everything like that. And I don't really know of the cost. I think it's pretty expensive, but, for your health, I know people go to far lengths to improve on their health. So there's an option there. But yeah, so it definitely helps, in healing and recovery all the way through. It'll help you build form new blood vessels, which is also really good. So, like, if you could imagine a nice combination of, like, on one day out of the week, you do hyperbaric oxygen chamber or oxygen therapy, right? And, start to form these new blood vessels and all that fun stuff. And then you jump and do the cold plunge, and you constrict those vessels, and make everything work more efficient, right? And then you go into the sauna, and it's just like, you could imagine like a whole setup with these other health things. Now, granted, I've never done all 4 of these things that I'm going to talk to you about, or that I have spoken to you about, or whatever. I haven't done all of them in like a comprehensive program before. I think I might try that just to see, run an experiment on myself and see what's going on, right? Just to see how I feel. Let's put a pin in that one. I might end up doing something like that at some time in the future. Anyway, that's what I use the hyperbaric oxygen chamber for. healing, recovery. It is superb for that. And that oxygen, the 100% pure oxygen, you can feel that stuff filling your lungs and like you getting in there in your body. Like that stuff is good. 100% pure oxygen. That is some good stuff. Like protect your oxygen tanks. I'm like, I might start going around yanking them. Give me your oxygen tank. All right. Let me stop messing around. So now, finally, we'll get on to this final other health thing, and red light therapy. Now, what is red light therapy, right? Like, it sounds kind of funny, a little sus, but really, you basically just set up these panels that project a certain frequency of light, of energy rather, and you just stand there, right? So you stand there in front of these panels, and what these panels do is they give off this energy that your cells can absorb, and basically it boosts the mitochondria in your cells. That's the powerhouse of each cell. So it kind of supercharges your cells. Initially, this modality was used for, I mean, it still is used for like hair, skin, like your face and all that fun stuff, like smooth skin. But, it does, there are more studies that are popping up that are showing that it has some benefits beyond just the purely cosmetic stuff. And there's still a bunch of studies coming out now. Now, it's a relatively, I mean, it's not, the process in of itself is not new. It was called something else before. But I think the uses of it are being explored more now as we speak. So I don't typically put this the highest on my list of modalities. Like, think about it. Like, sauna and cold plunge, both of those have been out for like centuries, right? Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy has been out since like the 1600s or something like that. And then I'm guessing, I'm not entirely sure when red light therapy came out, but it was photo something or another therapy before. I'm not sure when that came out, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't centuries ago, right? So, but they're still doing research on it, and pretty decent things are coming out about it now. I would typically just use it for like an energy boost. Really, that's really what it comes down to. I think every time that I've done red light therapy, I came out feeling more energetic. I didn't necessarily feel recovered in a traditional sense. I just felt like I had more energy, right? And I'm sure there are additional benefits. I'm just waiting for the research to kind of catch up with it a little bit more before I mention anything else concerning red light therapy. But it's on this episode as something to try, something to see, and kind of go from there. So that concludes all of the other health stuff, and it was a 2-part episode, or 2 episodes, whatever. It covered a lot, right? And as newer things come out, or as additional studies come out, like for instance, as red light therapy becomes a little bit more developed and they maybe potentially find additional benefits, I'll bring it back on the episode and start to talk about it, dig into it a little bit more, and we'll find ways to kind of implement it in our routines, all that fun stuff. And as newer things come up, do the same thing with those. But that's the other health stuff, right? Let's get on now, for some random things. We're going random today. So I've taken on a new hobby as of late, and I completely stink at it. So I started playing golf not too long ago. Now here's what's funny. I hated the game. Like I literally did not like. I'm just like, this is not a sport. This blah 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 blah. I had all these bad things to say about it, and it took years and years of clients, friends, business associates, people just everywhere saying like, hey, maybe you should get out on the course, right? Like no, why? Why would I want to? And then eventually I caved. I guess I don't know what it is. Well, I do, and I'll explain. But I caved. Why this one in particular? That's what I don't know. Why did I cave on golf? Whatever. But I started playing, and with this idea of just trying to become an average player. I don't really like. I'm not going on the PGA Tour. That's well beyond me. But it is something to learn. In fact, it is a challenge, and that's what's really keeping me in it. Because surprise, surprise, I'm actually starting to like it. I have to explain something first, right? So I started golfing, and well, I have to tell you, my broken club count is now at 2. Right. So it's funny, and actually, both clubs were 5 hybrids. Why? Why on earth did I? So here's the thing. Here's what happened. I was at the driving range. Actually, I was at the driving range with one of my clients. And we're, I'm trying to figure out the golf swing, he's giving me a few pointers and everything like that because, I didn't know what I was doing. And then I started to get a nice little setup, a nice little rhythm, nice little motion and all that fun stuff. And so I'll start working with the 5 hybrid because I absolutely stunk with the driver. I just couldn't. It's just everything about it was just weird to me. And it still is a little weird. But anyway, I remember I was setting up the 5 hybrid and I was actually going to hit the ball off the tee because it was just like, well, maybe that's like, it's kind of like a mini driver almost, like a really, really mini driver. So let me see if I can work with this, at least get some of the technique down, then go from there. So I'm like, all right, I wind up, I do the backswing. I'm like, all right, here we go. We getting ready. And I knock it. I knock it. And somehow the head of the golf club also goes with the ball. And in fact, I think the ball went maybe 50 yards or like something like that. Like I honestly lost the ball, but the head of the golf club went 100 yards. All the way out there. And I'm just like, oh. So first of all, that was embarrassing. That was embarrassing because I'm just sitting there like, those weren't even my clubs. And I'm breaking somebody else's club. I got to pay for this dude's club. Like, I got to get him a new club. So I'm going like immediately like, hey, look, how much was it? The story ends well and everything like that. But then it's just like, all right, so that's one. Maybe a month later, not even a long period of time later, I'm out it's a corporate outing and borrowing somebody else's clubs again, right? I'm just like, okay, we got it this time. I'm still new. I don't really have anything down, and I haven't been out to too many courses, if any at that point in time, right? So I was like, all right, cool. So we lined it up, 5 hybrid again. This time in the ground, not from the sea. And I remember the wind up on this one, and there was something in my head that said, nope. But I still went on right on through with it. And this time it went bang, bounced off the ground, and the head of it flew in the air and plopped right on down in front of me. And everybody's like, duck, 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 we're getting out of the way. That's 2 clubs within a span of not even 2 months. Broken. And so you would think like, hey, you got frustrated with the club and you just broke it over your knee. Nope. This was me just trying to play the game. And I stink. But I'm slowly getting it and getting better, right? The thing about it is there are certain aspects to golf that don't really translate into anything else. Like, it's very unique to golf itself, right? So like the technique is very unique, but it is very different. It's a different form of movement altogether. And you can't just solely rely on strength, which, I have a decent amount of. Like, you cannot rely on strength for that. It's almost like you have to, in most sports, you need the strength first and then the technique, kind of, you layer the technique on top of that, and it kind of refines it a little bit. In this, you have to have the technique first and then you kind of layer the strength on top of that, if that makes any sense at all. So it's very interesting. At least that's what I have to do. That's the way I have to approach it, right? Because I will approach all sports from a strength perspective first, right? And this one, it was just learning technique. But not only just learning technique, find the technique that best fits my body. And so let me pause for a second there, right? I don't want this to turn into a golf segment, right, where I'm going to teach you how to play golf, because I can't play it myself, right? But I am slowly but surely figuring out a way to line up a better golf swing. And look, you shoot straight, you go far, or accurate rather, whether that's far or close in, and pretty much put the ball where you want it to go. That's the name of the game, really, right? But all that aside, all of the technical stuff aside, all of the goof ups aside, the reason why I started playing golf and trying to learn golf is basically for the challenge, right? It's like, it's not that I needed another hobby, because I don't, right? I don't need to add on, a golf player on top of everything else that I do. But it's keeping me moving, right? And it's keeping me thinking. So here's the thing, like, if you're not growing, if you're not learning to do new things, if you're not learning new ways to move, if you're not learning new ways to think, you become stagnant. And stagnation, to me, is actually diminishing, right? There is no real staying the same. It's either you're growing, or in a little bit more of a visceral term, like either you're growing or you're dying, right? Either you're becoming more or you're becoming less. But there is really no stay the same in this instance, right? And that's typically not the way I look at life either, right? There's no stay the same, right? And that's why I think a lot of times stagnation feels so bad. Stagnation feels bad because it's not actually staying on an even level. It's actually you losing, right? And I don't want to lose. and I know, at least my mentality is, I can be the best of everything in my life the older I get. And I don't think that's the general consensus for people. The general consensus is, well, I'm older, so I can't do as much. Or I'm older and I can't lift as much. I'm older and I can't move as much. I'm older and I can't figure this out as much. And it's just like, why is it that the older you become, the less you become? I rebuke that thought. The older you become, the more you should be, right? And that's, I'm entering a point in time where I actually am starting to think about my age now. Like, when you're in your 20s, you ain't really worried about it. When you're in your 30s, you're not quite worried about it. And you hit your 40s and you're just like, all right, maybe I should start thinking about this. Like, who am I? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Right? But outside of all that, it's just like, you should be becoming more. You should become more. But let me clarify for a quick moment. I'm not saying that's so this idea of stagnation, the way I see it, being still is not stagnation. Okay. Taking a break is not stagnation, right? So again, being still and taking a break, that's not stagnation. Stagnation, as I see it, is lack of progress. And I guess a really good way to explain it is this, right? Your let's just say your goal is to gain 10 pounds of lean muscle tissue. And you figure it's going to take you 6 months to do that. It's probably going to take longer, but depending on who you are, it could take 6 months. It could even take less, but let's just say it's going to take you 6 months to do it. And in month 1, you gain 2 pounds of lean muscle tissue. Month 2, 2 pounds. Month 3, nothing. Month 4, well, let's just say, so month 3, a lot of people will say, well, I hit the plateau or I'm stagnant. And I don't think that's stagnation, right? Because then in month 4, you can come off and say like, hey, whoa, I just gained 4 pounds of lean muscle tissue, right? The thing is, especially when it comes to, let's just say, talk about like being still, sometimes you have to be still to let things go by. Sometimes you have to be still to set up, to almost batten down the hatches a little bit so that you can endure, so that you can withstand, right? So that's not stagnation. That's staying still so that you could be set up in a better position to make moves at a future time, right? So it's kind of nuanced there, but I don't see just purely being still or taking a break as stagnation. Stagnation simply is a lack of progress when progress should be had, right? So I took on the challenge of becoming an average golfer because I want to do new things, but I want to do new things not for the sake of doing those new things. I want to keep my mind sharp. I want to keep growing, right? So the thing is, when you learn to do, like, let's just say you want to learn a new language, go out and learn that new language, right? You want to learn how to play a new sport, go learn how to play that new sport. You want to learn to do something new. That's what keeps your brain actually growing. I forgot what it was called. It's something like brain plasticity, right? It's the ability of your brain to adapt and actually grow. And that's the thing. And that's not limited by age, right? So remember, in this episode, I was talking about, or the main topic for the last 2 episodes, I'm talking about the other health stuff and a lot of the benefits to the other health items, cognitive benefits, mental benefits. Those things keep your brain fresh and keep them going, right? So beyond that, taking on new challenges also does the same thing. The same thing. So I'm taking on a new challenge for this. All right. Although I'm learning to move my body in different ways too, to have a little bit more finesse than I probably had before, right? But it's here, right? And it's funny because it's also, because it's so unique, the game of golf in and of itself, and because I'm enjoying the process of learning how to play it, how to play it somewhat well, right? That's the reason why I won't get a coach yet. Not because I think I'm great, not because I think I'm a better coach than everybody on the face of this planet. Far from that. It's more so I am enjoying the process of exploring. I'm enjoying the process of learning, and right now it's all self-taught for the most part, right? Other than some key videos on YouTube. I'm going to tell you, there's some videos. Now there's a lot on YouTube. I honestly, I wouldn't even suggest it, right? Like, the path for most people would be to go get a few lessons. It's just straight up, right? I am at a point where I'm specifically not doing that because the trainer in me wants to figure it out. And the trainer in me is actually boosting, like, the trainer in me is forcing my brain to work differently, right? I'm taking this as an opportunity to grow my brain. Now, does that mean I'll have it all figured out at any point in time? Nothing's guaranteed there, right? And does that mean I'll never take lessons? No, that doesn't mean that either. But I am definitely thoroughly enjoying the challenge and enjoying the process of trying to figure out how to do this thing, to at least a proficient level and break no more clubs. How about that? So let me close out this part by saying, stay active. And I don't mean just physically active. Stay mentally active as well. Stay active. And the number of years you have on this earth is not a limiting factor. In fact, the more years you have on this earth, the more you should be, the better you should be. Okay? I want you to get that in your spirit. Get that, because the more you have, the more you should be. Oh man. So I know this is somewhat old news, right? But I'm still kind of blown away by this one. So I recently stumbled upon this it started off as a video, and then I did some digging and started talking to people, and so the whole idea of a professional cuddler, like cuddles, like cuddles. Cuddles, like a professional cuddler. And I mean, look, I was taken aback by this one, and I was surprised, I guess, right? Because I knew something of this. I didn't know. So here's the thing, right? Like my youngest son, he was born premature. He was prematurely born, and he was in the NICU for about a month. And there was this nurse on staff who would stop by and basically hold him, right? That was her gig. And whenever I came by the hospital, which was, basically every day from that point, or whenever my wife stopped by the hospital, we would basically, like, she would be the one that sets us up to like the skin to skin for a baby, right? But this is a different ball game over here, right? This is for adults. Like, so adults are paying other adults, and what they call them cuddle therapists, because it's apparently is a form of therapy, which that's also pretty mind blowing to me, right? But adults are paying other adults to cuddle with them. And there are parts of this that feel like really, really weird. Like, that's kind of strange, right? But then I started to dig even more. I still think it's a little strange, but I started to dig even more into, like, first of all, about 95 to 99% of the cuddle therapists are women. And close to 95 to 99% of the cuddle clients are men. So that got me thinking, because not only is the majority of the cuddle clients men, but like there's a large percentage of these men who are over the age of 50. And then that got me thinking even more, but it breaks down even to, so the base that makes up these 50-year-old men who are paying for professional cuddlers, and I don't want to sound aloof with this one. I don't want to sound silly with this one, but the majority of the men who are paying for this are either divorced, widowed, or they and here's the part that I'm still trying to wrap my head around, or they are actively married in a marriage that has no like physical contact. Let me start from the top and break that down again. Let's just say, stick with it, even 95% of the cuddle clients are men. A large portion of that 95% is men over 50. So you have 50 plus year old men, and a large portion of that is 50 plus year old men who are actively in a marriage that has no physical contact. Now that one really got the wheels turning. So, and before I even get, I don't want to over intellectualize this one, but it also kind of like it saddens me a little bit, right? That's kind of sad, right? A large portion of the men who are going to feel some physical contact with someone else is a bunch of men basically who are married, and they don't have that intimacy in their own marriage. And I was just sitting there thinking like, yo, what's going on with dudes out here? But I don't think that's the question to be asked. I think the question really is, what's going on with females? Because, and I say that in the sense that, like, I think I have a good grip on what's going on with men in general, at least men in America, right? There are a lot of things, and to be honest with you, a lot of this stuff is going to end up in the I don't know why I keep calling it the man episode, right? But there are a lot of things, there are a lot of issues with men in present day, okay? And I don't want any of those issues to kind of get shoved under the rug, because I think they 100% are getting shoved under the rug for reasons, okay? But I can't imagine, and I was talking to my wife about this. I can't imagine being in a marriage in which there's no physical contact, right? So if there's no, here's the thing I know for sure, right? Like if there's no physical contact and somebody's paying somebody to cuddle, is that like, are those men just as likely to go pay for, like, other things that are a little bit more elevated than that, but they maybe have some morals, right? Like, they're basically paying for intimacy, right? Whereas it's the opposite of what the other side is there, right? Where it's just like, men who go pay for, let's just call them escorts. I know they're not all escorts, right? But men who pay for that type of service, if you want to call it that. But men who pay for that, they're looking for one thing in particular, and it's really simply just, for lack of better terms, to get their rocks off, right? You don't typically look for intimacy in that end. And the way I kind of look at the cuddle stuff is like, that's intimate, right? That's connecting, that's bonding with someone, right? Because we already know the science is already out there, the research is already out there concerning human touch and how important that is, right? Like I just explained how my son was born premature, and one of the main things that they did to help him grow was hold him. Like that human contact is vital in those beginning stages, but apparently it is also vital well into adulthood. So you have these men out here who are going, and they're not looking for the actual physical contact, just that, but they're looking for intimacy. And the part that even kind of just like confuses me even more is that a lot of these men will go to a cuddle therapist with their spouse actually knowing, with their wives actually know it and encourage that they go get that intimacy somewhere else. Now, there has to be some nuance here that I'm missing. But that alone kind of just like, what? What? So, I mean, is it a situation in which the wife is basically, I'm not going to say like lazy, but like kinda, right? Like that's like, what is the point in being married then? I guess that one kind of bothers me a little bit. It's just like, well, what are you married for then? Like, if everything that you should get from a marriage, your husband gets from outside of the marriage, what is the point in being in a marriage? I don't get that. So that one throws me off a little bit. Now, that's not to say that the cuddle therapist is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I think it's strange for a married man to do it, but I fully understand. Again, understanding the benefits of human contact, human touch. There's the level of growth that happens there, and bonding apparently, right? But it's still one of those things where I get it if you're single. I get it if you're single, especially after what COVID did to everybody, or I'm sorry, after what the response to COVID did to everyone. Right? We were forced to isolate and stay 6 feet apart and all this fun stuff. There was none of that really, and it's just a very interesting thing to me that you would think that there would be more clients who are single and doing this, and they're alone, which in fact is a big problem for men in general. Loneliness amongst men, of course, that's another thing that's not talked about, but loneliness amongst men is a big, big problem. There's two big problems with men today. And I get, you know what, next episode, episode 9, it's going to have to be the man episode, right? Because I'm going to go into territory where it's just going to be. So there's two main issues that men face right now for a bunch of other nuanced systems that are coming into play. One is loneliness, okay? So for a single male, I kind of understand it. I understand going to a cuddle therapist because from the way I understand it, that there's a lot of, it's therapy. It's therapy. And so they actually will talk, like the cuddle therapist will talk to you a little bit, and other times, but you have the ability to kind of talk out some of these things that are going on with you, and you can go from there. But the second big problem that men have in general, and I'll stop there, but the second problem is lack of purpose, right? And that lack of purpose shines through in so many different arenas. So in this case in particular, you have these 50-plus-year-old men who are in marriages, and there's no purpose. No purpose, no physical contact, no intimacy. I mean, that's the assumption, right? There has to be something else there. I'm not sure, though. And, the data on it, there's not a lot of data on it. So I'm just using rationality to kind of connect the dots a little bit. Those are the two big things, though. Loneliness, lack of purpose, that's taking men out. And we don't nearly talk about that enough, because those are the two main reasons that are charted that lead to men self-deleting. And that's another huge, huge problem that is not talked about nearly enough. So I found this cuddle therapist thing very interesting. but it makes a statement, and it probably makes more statements than you would think. Now, I got a cuddle therapist at home. That's my wife. Ain't no way. Boy, ain't no way. I'm going to some other woman. Yeah. All right. I gotta leave it there. Yeah. Cuddle therapist. Very interesting. Yeah. We gonna keep it moving. All right, peeps. There we have it. Episode. I keep forgetting this episode number. Episode 8 in the Episode 8 in the books. Listen, this one was a fun one. And I want to open it up real quick. So if there are some topics that you would want me to discuss or want me to bring up on the podcast, let me know, right? So this podcast goes out wherever you get your podcasts, of course. It also is split up into individual sections on YouTube. And there's also social media stuff. The studio is pretty easy to find, right? Say Cheese and Lift, wherever you go, right? Drop in one of the comments on some of the posts, drop in one of the comments on one of the videos at any point in time. If there is a topic that you want to hear on this pod, you let me know. And I will be sure to, if I already don't have it planned, break it apart, dig into it. Listen, I want you to look forward to, well, you don't have to look forward to it, but I want you to be ready. Episode 9, right? Yeah, episode 9. Episode 9 will be, I joke and call it the man episode, but in reality, this episode is for my sons, okay? And that's likely to be the title, For My Sons. It's going to be about the whole episode, including the random topics, quick tip and all, about masculinity. What is it really, right? And there are going to be a whole bunch of teaching points that I have throughout that entire episode. The state of men, what's actually going on here, and what we can do about it, what we ought to do about what I would say is the sad state of affairs when it comes to masculinity. And let's I'll kind of put a pin in that, but let me know if there's anything that you want heard on a pod, right? We'll go from there. But in the meantime, you know what to do. Share I got the clips going out there. Share those clips. Like all the stuff, right? Comment on whatever you need to comment on, right? Whatever draws something from you, right? And also subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. That would do a lot to help us grow here, right? Because there's a lot of things in the works that I hope to do, and that, well, myself and my team, that we hope to do, and we need to know that it's worth doing. You know what I mean? For lack of better terms. But in the meantime, I'm Coach Evan. This is Say Cheese and Lift Studio, and you just got finished listening to the Scowl Method Podcast, your one-stop shop for not only physical fitness, but mental fitness, emotional fitness, and spiritual fitness. I will see y'all on the next one. Y'all take care. Y'all be safe.